truth?
I'm all ears.
Okay. The truth.
I always tell the truth, even when I lie.
Why do you find it so hard to believe?
Why do you find it so easy?
It's never been easy.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth.
All I'm offering is the truth. Nothing more.
Hello and welcome to Truthful Talk. I am your host, Marco, and here's Natalie with us once again. And we have a very, very special guest. We're extremely excited to welcome today Allan Whitehead to the show. Hello, Allan. You deserve all of that applause. Now, for those of you out there who might not know who Allan Whitehead is, not only has he been a longtime student of Truthful Acting and a huge contributor and partner in our Theater on the Edge, he also is a litigation attorney and partner in a law firm out in Melbourne, Florida of Fries, Whitehead, Anderson, and Henderson. Did I get all those names right?
You got it.
I got it. All right. So it's exciting because one of the things I really wanted to talk about today is because you're a pretty cool example, Allan, of, I mean, you're a lawyer, you're an attorney, and not just like any lawyer, not to, minimize what any other lawyer does, but you're a partner in a firm. You're pretty heavily involved. There's a ton of work that you have to do day in and day out, yet you still do a ton of theater. You're involved in film, which I would love you to talk about with your son and everything. I want you to talk about that too. But you're involved in so much artistic stuff. And one of the main questions I always get is, how do you do that? How do you balance work and how do you balance life and how do you still have time for the art? And you're doing it all and you're killing it. And so I think you're the perfect person to tell us.
We're just going to listen. Just
how do you
talk,
do
Allan,
it all?
Tell us your secret.
Yeah, because it's amazing. It's amazing. So first of all, explain to everyone a little bit of what do you do for work, and then we can go into the art.
Well, I'm a lawyer in Melbourne, as you said. I do litigation work, and it's what I'll characterize, I guess, as general civil litigation. I handle cases that go to court and go to trial. And we go through, the pretrial processes of the hearings that you have to go through to resolve all the issues you need to resolve before you get to court. And then you go to trial and you argue your case in front of either a judge or a jury. And my cases are primarily, or almost all, civil cases where business partners, doctors groups versus hospitals, real estate developers versus contractors, homeowners versus contractors, homeowners versus neighbors, any sort of trademark cases where people are fighting over who gets to use the name Truthful Acting Studios, for example, something like that.
Oh, wow.
Way into court. And I litigate those cases, which takes years to get a case from the beginning to the end. Somebody comes into my office and says, Allan, I have this problem. And then we take that problem and work through the civil justice system to resolve that problem with the assistance of the court. So that's what I've been doing. I've been doing it since 1990.
Wow.
And since 1991 in Melbourne, Florida.
Okay.
And so I'm fairly experienced, and it's I won't say it's easy. It's a challenging job, and it's a rewarding job because it is challenging. And I get to stand up, and it kind of ties into the what you do on stage a bit, and what you do with your scene partners, and through the program that we've learned through Meisner, which is to work off your partner and convince them, fight hard to get a result. Right. And that's what I do. And instead of a partner on the other side, there's a judge, or there's a witness, or there's who I'm cross-examining, or there's a jury who I'm persuading. and talking to individual jurors as I work my way through the jury box. It's the same sort of process to a certain extent.
So, I mean, are you able to use then acting tools to help you in a court environment?
I think so. I think that my ability to persuade, especially with juries, has benefited substantially from
Wow.
what I've learned through your program and through just experience of working with actors like Natalie and other folks and you, Marco, and just kind of working hard to to move somebody. That's what you're doing with a jury.
Yep.
That's what you're doing with a judge.
Right. And I guess the difference between acting in a play versus in a courtroom would be you're working with real life things in a courtroom, but it's still the same thing though, right? I mean, once you have your real life facts and evidence and whatever you're working with, now it's still trying to convince somebody of your side of what you're doing, which is actually exactly the same of what we do on stage.
Yeah.
I think so. I really do. I think that the only difference is, when you're working a play or you're working a movie with a script, generally what the outcome is going to be at the end of the show. And in my work, most cases where what the outcome's going to be, those that you're 90% certain you're going to win,
right?
Those cases you never get to take to court. They always settle. It's the ones where you got a 50-50 chance or a 40% chance of winning. Those are the ones that go to court. And so it's exciting, but it's also, unnerving to go to court, to argue to a jury and to wait.
Right.
And you have to wait and you don't get the result
Oh my
until
goodness.
the jury comes back, So
Yeah.
it's that's a difference. But watching, living in one of the things that I've learned through the acting process is you watch your partner, you live in the moment and you spontaneously live. And that's really helped in the courtroom for me because it's taught me to read and see what's happening with the judge that I'm arguing with or arguing toward,
Right.
or with the witness, and what kind of see the subtleties of what's going on. Most people are pretty stoic and reserved on the witness stand, so you have to look for those little subtleties that that we see on stage when we're on stage, and certainly with juries.
So like the core work we do, which is just being present now, being in this moment, working off of everything that's happening with your partner. That's
Right.
that's I guess the main thing you're talking about is noticing, I guess, how the judge is reacting, how the I don't know, opposing counsel, juries,
Everything. Yeah. And it's really, when I'm in court, it's almost like, you compartmentalize your life. Like when you go on stage, you say your little mantra, you walk out the door on stage and you're in that moment. And that's all that matters is what's happening with your partner or partners. And it's the same thing in court. I walk into the courtroom, I'm nervous. I say my little mantra.
Right.
I walk into court and live in the moment. But there are a lot of, there's a lot of stuff happening that you have to pay attention to, especially in trial, because you're looking at the jury, you're looking at your opposing counsel, you're looking at the witness, you're fielding objections and have to know how to respond and argue with the judge as to why the other side's objection should be overruled. And it's just boom, 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 boom. And making notes as to what you're going to say at the end of the case in a closing argument to support your position. So it's thrilling. It really is. That's why I continue to do it, even though I've in the last 7 or 8 years fallen so much in love with it, acting and
Right.
doing this.
Well, there's such a great crossover,
Really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's such a great crossover to it that you actually get to practice all of your acting with your attorney work. So
Right.
it gives you like a playground that you can also make money at, right? So you can have a job where you're,
It pays a little better.
it pays just a little better than acting. Yes.
How long have you been doing acting? What, Truthful, Allan, studying?
Yes,
How long have you been studying at Truthful acting? Or how long, when did you start? Because they asked me and I had the same face you have. I was like, wow. I was just curious.
I think probably, gosh, Marco, you may know better than me, but I think around 10 years ago,
Yeah.
10 or 11 years ago.
I was going to say it was around that. It was before you had the bike accident, right? It was.
Yes.
So it was before
Yeah, it was.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like right before, but it was before that. So
Yeah,
it was
I
probably
think
been
it's
about
been
10
about
years.
11 years. 10
Right
or
around
11
the
years.
same, interesting that it was right around the same time you were there the first time.
I saw you in Orphans and then American Buffalo. I think Orphans was first. Which one was first?
American Buffalo.
American
Buffalo
Buffalo
was
was first. So I
first.
saw that. So
Yeah.
you had already been this, like for me, when I think I've been there 8 years now.
Yeah.
And to see that quality of work, I mean, it was shocking to me to witness. Orphan still is, I think about it like I would say weekly. I'm like, man, that was so amazing. Man, I just got to sign something from someone that came from Orphans or whatever. And you guys were so incredible, but the quality that you had in your acting and your ability to work off it was so incredible. And then when I found out you're a lawyer, and had been practicing law, I was like, game over. No, but it's inspirational that you're able to juggle that part of the mind.
Right.
I guess, you went to school, you put all your dues in. You can't just become a lawyer. You have to, set that you are ready to do that, practice the law. Everything that you've done is so fascinating to me. And learning that the acting has helped facilitate your work, your professional work it's beautiful to hear, because I really feel that people who are, especially leaders in the professional world, could benefit so much from actually taking some acting classes, because they maybe think that we're just, I don't even know what. But since my husband's also in a professional world too, I'm just like, man, there's so much that you could really hone in, because it takes the veil off. It allows you to hyper focus or something about it that not the average person doesn't do, or somebody who doesn't care for being like, it's somebody who doesn't care. There's lawyers who aren't good at their job, and there's lawyers who are they're winning everything.
Yeah.
And it's just because of the amount of care that they put in, and the jurors believe them, so it's just so amazing that has helped you even be a better professional lawyer. It's just incredible.
And you're right, Nat. There almost needs to be, I don't know, Allan, we got to think about this, but there needs to be some sort of training that's adapted. We could take acting training and adapt it to all these different fields, but attorneys, medical professionals at a certain level that need to really be in tune with people.
Hospitality is a huge one, because that's where my husband's from, and they're missing a niche, because dealing with the public and certain really deep abusive things that happen. Long story, just to be able to have that ability to even understand more of how to be aware of certain things, and then you can fix whatever issue that you have without being so devastated, because that's what's happening when I see people who aren't trained in acting. Family members, and then friends that now have become my family. The way that you guys handle challenges and stress is way different from, I would call a civilian.
Right.
Like, it's so fascinating to me. It's just, it's overwhelming for them. And then for the actors, it's like they can sit in it. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's the the need to be able to fully focus on what you're doing, and to be in and at the same time be relaxed and in the moment and spontaneous. A lot of people think, a lot of people that aren't trained, I guess, think that, and some people that aren't trained, I suppose, think that acting is all about memorizing lines, coming on stage and doing it the same way every single time.
Right.
And that, that is just, as we know, it's not acting. I don't know what it is, but to be able to, know your lines so well, know everything so well that all you have to do is walk in and live. And that's the way I feel about my profession in court. Know it so well. And it takes hours and hours and hours to prepare.
Yeah.
You really have to know your case. You really have to know what you're going to say. You have to find the law to support your position. You have to know the facts backwards and forwards. You have to have usually before you go to court, you take somebody's deposition so you know what they're going to say, and they can't change their story when they get into court.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to know what they said in the deposition and have that in your mind, and it all has to be there. And then you walk in and you live and you spontaneously react. And that's that, Natalie, is what makes the difference between a good lawyer and a very effective, great lawyer is the ability to live spontaneously and to react and to shift gears when you need to shift gears and adjust and leave one subject and go to the next subject and shut somebody down that's trying to get in your way and not let them throw you off, not be thrown off because something's different.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of lawyers I see come in and they have their notes typed up and they're making their argument, and then the judge asks them a question and it throws them all off. I mean, these are lawyers from blue blood firms that have, that charge $800-900 an hour, and they get thrown off by a simple question because it's not in their list. It's not what they prepared for.
I mean, I'm listening to you describe what makes a great lawyer, and it's the same exact things that make a great actor.
Right.
It's the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like knowing it so well that you can live.
And maybe it's because I do both, but I think that's it.
But yeah, I think because I mean, even when we see, I know most of the time, most people only see lawyers represented on TV or TV shows, movies. But even in those situations, even in the stories of attorneys, the ones that make it are the ones that can adapt. The ones that know it so well or have a passion to it that they can adapt. And so that's exactly what you're describing is because you're right. I guess you never really know in certain cases anyway. You never really know what a judge is going to say or what a opposing counsel is going to bring up. And you have to adjust to that instead of just going by the book, which in acting is the same thing as we have to adjust moment to moment.
There's a good deal of what I'll call, for purposes of, this truthful talk, improvisation.
Yes. Right.
In court. Yeah.
And can I also add living in the unknown?
Right.
Which is what you do, like when you have such a massive, weight for you, what you do professionally, it's real life. But that's the same exact kind of tool as being able to be okay with that. You're walking that tightrope, and that is also a skill.
Wow, that's amazing.
There are a lot of, that's all the courtroom stuff. There are a lot of aspects to your job as a lawyer that are not as pleasant and not as exciting and not as rewarding as walking into court and making an argument or taking a deposition or doing a trial. It's it's the managing your time. It's sometimes very difficult. Especially, in a smaller market, like a Melbourne versus a New York.
New York or something.
Or a bigger market where you have to kind of take what comes in the door, and you're doing a big variety of different cases. You have that component. You're charging for your time. So you have to explain to somebody, you go get your car fixed. They fix your car. The next day you pay them for fixing your car. You see the result. In court, in my job, they come to me, and 18 months to 2 years later, they get a verdict. but they get a bill every month for all the stuff they're not
Right.
Yeah.
seeing, for all this work that, it's not concrete. You don't see it. And so it's frustrating for a client
Sure.
to have to pay what they pay. And it's not, it's a very expensive undertaking to take a case all the way through to a verdict in the civil court system.
And that's part of the language too of you are master at the language of law, if you will. And someone like me, novice, I wouldn't know what is part of the regular thing, day-to-day situation that you go through. So if I get a bill just naturally, because I don't know any better, so there's just so much understanding that, or like a bridge to understanding, like from what you do. And you're talking about like managing the time and doing all that stuff. And then telling me, and like, wait a second, it's like you said, 2 years later, then I have a bill. So it's just so much education that you're also trying to give to someone on the same time. Do you think that you are a master at time management? I'm just wondering. Or do you struggle with time management like the regular
I
folk?
struggle somewhat with time management, but I'm pretty good at it. I've learned that. I was you talked about law school and the fact that you have to go to law school to be a lawyer. Well, my trip to law school was kind of interesting. I was in the Navy for a while, and I got married as I was in the Navy, and I was gone a lot. I had two sons that were born while I was in the Navy. But I was at sea in the Navy over a 3-year period. I was probably at sea 2 of those 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Gone a lot. And so make a long story short, came back, ended up getting a divorce. My kids at the time were 4 and 2. I had to figure out a way to take I became a single father when they were 4 and 2. I ended up fighting for and getting custody of my sons. And so I had to get a job that would allow me to stay home. So I got a job teaching ROTC at Navy ROTC at Marquette University, where I went to law school. So I was teaching ROTC, going to law school, and raising 2 kids that were 3 and 5. And it taught me time management.
Okay.
I got up every morning at 4 a.m. and studied till 7. Got the kids up, got them off to daycare and school, did my job, went to class. Fortunately, Marquette University, where I taught ROTC, was where I went to law school, so I could teach and go to law school at the same time and adjust my schedule to do that. So it was really a benefit for me to be able to do that. But I learned, and then being a single father of these 2 boys for the time they were 2 and 4, all the way up until Maria and I got married, which was when the kids were maybe 16 and 14. So about 10 or 11 years, I went to law school, worked as a lawyer, and took care of 2 kids on my own.
Wow.
You had to learn how to manage your time, which I did. And so,
Which you did.
and that's, I think, Marco, you're asking, how do you do it? How do you have a professional life and a life in the arts doing what we do, and the amount of time it takes to do what we do.
Yeah.
It's through that time management. I'm up every morning at least by 4:30 or 5. And, I live on about 6 hours of sleep a night. Right.
Now, do you think it's important in order to have that little sleep? And I say that little sleep, I do about the same thing, but it's enough. But do you think it's important to like what you do for work in order to be able to have that extra energy?
Absolutely. I mean, there are days I don't like what I do. Those are hard days.
Okay. So those are harder. Okay.
When you're dealing, we deal with a lot in litigation, but people that get along and are, most people resolve their problems without having to go butt heads in court in a civil dispute. So the clients that we end up with are very demanding and very type A personalities and very oftentimes very disagreeable sorts. And so you have to, you have good days and bad days. I once described being a lawyer to somebody by saying, well, I spend half the time half my time talking on the phone with people that don't want to talk to me, and the other half talking to people that I don't want to talk to. And there are days like
funny.
that, but
Okay.
it's still very the good outdoes the bad.
Okay. All right.
And I'm still with the time management thing, because obviously prepping for being in court and then prepping for being in a lead role, not just coming in and saying, one line and out. Like you are one of the leads of the show, and it's a lot of responsibility. How do you have a set amount of time for you to dedicate to, let's just say, lines? Do you have I'm going to give myself 2 hours a day, 2 hours a week, 2 hours a month? How do you chip away at that specific, the learning the lines part?
I do what we do, which is, one of the first things I do is to rewrite the script.
Yeah.
And I put it on legal pads
Mm-hmm.
like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then I say I'm going to do, I require myself to memorize a certain number of legal pages a day.
That alone, I love it. I require myself.
Yeah.
Sorry, that alone.
And I don't go to bed until I've learned the number of pages I require myself to do, which used to be, even in the 10 years, used to be like 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's 2.
Mm-hmm.
But still,
it's still yeah. Do you still walk in the morning?
I do, yeah.
Because
Yeah,
I remember you used to run your lines while you were walking, and you found that to be very beneficial.
Once I rough memorize, I learn all the pages, then I start with an act. And as I'm exercising or working out, I'll do the act over and over and over and over. And then
That's great.
Eventually I get to go and learn it so well that I can do the entire play maybe 3 times while I'm working out in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's kind of like throwing the ball, only you're just right.
Yeah, I've been doing that, I would say, the last couple of years or whatever, utilizing line rehearsal, if you will, with myself at the gym. It's like triple whammy. How many birds can I kill with this one stone? And they're slow birds, but I get them done. They're not really fast, but I found that that's a nice way to get it in the body too. After maybe you do some of the ball stuff so much, you're like, maybe I can go and pick up some weights. I don't know, but I found that super helpful.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, Allan, did you do acting in high school, college, or did you go from high school into the Navy?
I did. In fact, I'm glad you asked me that, because about a little over a week ago, I got invited and went and celebrated my high school acting teacher's 83rd birthday.
Oh, wow.
With her at dinner with some friends from high school.
Oh, that is awesome.
And she's actually, Marco, been to see a couple shows at Toad.
How beautiful.
And she changed my life. It's one of those stories.
That's so awesome.
She is one of my favorite humans on the planet. And I did some acting in high school. I did some acting in college.
Okay.
And then thought that's what I wanted to do. I was actually accepted for graduate school at NYU.
Wow. Okay.
And then I couldn't afford it and didn't go. And then ended up, I don't know, 6 months later joining the Navy to do the world and did that and kind of had kids. Got away from, there was actually a point in time as I was considering graduate school to segue from the Navy to a professional life. There was a period of time where I was torn between law school and getting an MFA there was a University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee had a really good 3-year MFA program.
Right.
And I ended up choosing, because of my, what I felt was my obligation and duty to make sure my kids were okay.
Yeah.
I chose law school and went to law school, and I'm glad I did. It's for those reasons that we've already talked about. It's been a great experience.
Yeah.
And then and then as you all know, or Marco, I know you know, my second son, Dustin, is an actor, and he teaches acting for the camera at University of South Carolina, and he convinced me about about 10 years ago to look for a professional theater training program in Orlando, which I did, and I found you know another one of my favorite humans on the planet, Marco George, and other wonderful folks like Natalie. And
that's so beautifully poetic. That I was just, as you're talking, I'm thinking like, so you've always had a love for acting. Obviously, I feel like if you've done it in high school, like there's something that your heart kind of went to. You just went to this teacher's, you said a birthday party of hers or dinner.
Yeah.
So it's always been there. And like you said, out of obligation and let's say priorities that were more important at the time, it's just so beautiful that turn it around, that his son comes back and kind of maybe reignites a passion that was always there. And I just think it's fascinating because all the work that I've seen you do, Allan, it's just like you can't fake that love that you have for it. And I have seen your son's incredible work on Amazon Prime, right? And I've seen you on there. It's just so amazing. So it's so beautiful to hear. Thank you for even sharing this. Like, I think it's so wonderful.
We were actually very fortunate to have Dustin come down and help choreograph because he's also a fight choreographer, and he came down and choreographed Superior Donuts, we had a fight, right? Wow. You and I had a fight sequence in there where Allan actually broke my pinky, but that's how
Yes. We'll never live that one down.
It wasn't Allan's fault. It was his steel chest that I poked against and it broke. But I mean, it was awesome. I mean, what a great experience it was having Dustin involved with just helping us. And I mean, just his passion for what he does is so evident. Yeah. And it was so neat to have him involved. And now you're involved with him again with doing some film stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We started a nonprofit film production company and also a for-profit film production company, but we started it about a year before COVID. So around 2018, 2019.
Okay.
First movie, I think, which is what y'all were talking about, is
Bruiser, right?
Bruiser.
Which we made for $25,000. And that kind of was a calling card that got us some connections through the film business, and the companies have grown substantially, and the nonprofit, which is called Local Cinema Studios, and you can look at local cinemas. Just Google Local Cinema Studios, and it'll pull you to the website. And we do a feature film every summer. That the idea is to bridge the gap between academia and the industry for mostly students and recent graduates working with professionals to make feature films. And we usually get one named actor in each movie, maybe. No, by named, I mean, that might pull some attention to the film. And so it's been great. And then our for-profit company, has done a handful of films too that have been distributed and produced and are available to view. That's a company called Iris Indie International.
That's incredible.
You're doing so much.
I mean, my
it's
goodness,
incredible.
you and your son,
right? And
the blood.
Is Dustin still involved in theater, or is he changed his focus primarily to film at this point?
He has been spending a lot of time with film. He's the head of Local Cinema Studios.
Right.
He is the chief, the main person that gets grant money. We get a grant from the South Carolina Film Commission every summer to make the feature film, which is a sizable grant. And he has a really good connection with filmmakers in and around South Carolina and North Carolina. His first love is acting. He's acted the last couple of summers in some significant roles. He did two roles this summer.
Okay.
2 different films. But still loves theater, and I think that's what he'd rather do.
Wow.
Just because,
And even having that experience of doing feature films, all this stuff, right? That you still feel as if there's nothing that compares to acting in live theater. And it's like it always calls you back to. Crazy.
Yeah, there's something about live theater that, because I've done both as well, and film is just tedious. How would you categorize the difference between the two?
Yeah, I think they're both incredibly challenging. I think the hard part about film is, for me anyway, is how it's disjointed, and you have to really work on where your character is on that day, because you might do the ultimate critical scene on the first day and then go back to the introduction to your character on the last day.
Yeah.
Right.
Sequentially. And that's really hard you have to really do a lot of work. And most of the work you do, because I don't know what your experience has been, Marco, but my experience in film anyway, in the independent film world, is that the directors aren't as experienced as working with actors as theater directors are.
Right.
And so you do a lot of your work on your own.
Yes.
And without a sounding board. And so, it better be right, or they better like it.
You're on your own, basically, as the actor.
You're on your own. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like, that's one of the things I love about theater is the team sports kid growing up. I played football. I loved it. I loved being a part of a team. That's what I love about both film and theater, but theater really is a team effort. You're meeting a couple of hours before the game,
right?
Getting yourself in the mood,
right? It's
definitely tremendous amount of love in the room.
Yeah,
tremendous amount of support. You go out and play the game, come back and celebrate, or cry, depending on how the game goes.
Right? Yeah, it's definitely more of an ensemble.
And it doesn't and do better, and always trying to up your last one, always.
Yeah, keep going that.
So there's no that's it. We just did this take and here we are. It's like, no, tomorrow's another show, or you have a double today. That's crazy.
Being on the production side of the film world and kind of working with the editors and post-production and working with all the technicians and the people that make the magic happen. My impression is that the acting is about the very, 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 very tip of the iceberg, and everything else that really makes an amazing movie happens, around that.
So you have been able to be in the production side of things in regards to film. So you also have that unique perspective. I hear Marco tell the students in class all the time, if you can be involved in be a part of the crew, be part of this, be part of that, because it does help facilitate you as the actor when you do get that role in the future. You just know how it all kind of works a little more clearly.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I agree. I'm a baby when it comes to film work. I've worked on a handful of films as an actor, but it's also very, it's just cool working off a partner, whether you're doing it with a camera in between you, whether you're doing it on stage, whether you're doing it in court. It just really is what makes life and worth it.
And then back in 2016, we started Theater on the Edge. Right, which
which
I think was, I don't know where that, I'm trying to remember. We did, I think it was 2015. We did a showcase, the showcase that you had done, right? The Sunset Limited.
Sunset Limited, yeah.
And it was from there where I don't know, did we just start? I can't remember exactly, but we just started saying, why don't we do this for real? And we somehow did.
Wow.
We did. And 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 we did American Buffalo.
American Buffalo started because we first did the test balloon with Venus and Fur,
Right.
which was Pam Harbaugh had directed that over in the Henniger Center in Melbourne with Zach Roundy and Shanice Jordan, right? And
That's correct,
which are
yeah.
two TA actors, and I remember that was just, it was like, this is so good what we're seeing. I mean, it just is great, and it's like, what if we brought that over and restaged it over at Truthful Acting? And to me, that was the first test of like, can we do this? Can we put something up, and do we have enough of a theater for that people will come and see? And to me, that was at least a successful test. Right. And then we did American Buffalo. Yeah.
Wow.
From there. Just like, let's just jump into this and do it.
Right. And so I was thinking, as you both are talking, and I had this conversation with someone else who wants to produce, short little independent stuff. And it's like, there's a time to like prepare, and then a time to take action, and you don't have to have the whole thing figured out in your mind. Maybe just a good idea with someone else that you respect, and they can, do the work. They're ready, and it's like, let's try something out. So like, to give that to people that are listening who might, overthink and not jump for an opportunity or not try, I always think that's important too, like taking the action to do that, because you can sit and think about it for the rest of your life. But if you don't, just do it and walk that, whatever, take the chance.
It's like what your shirt says, just do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Just do it, right? Take my own advice.
Yeah, that
and I'm telling myself out loud that, because it's so much that things just kind of happen if you try. But if you don't try to do it, then nothing is going to come of it.
I'm a big believer, and I'm not too sure where this came from, because I wasn't always like this, especially not when I was in the corporate world. I was very much a planner and wanted to figure things out first. But somewhere along the way, I switched, and I tend to execute something, meaning I try to take action on something before I have too much information. Because what I find, if I research too much, I'll find information of why I shouldn't do it. And the theater's a great example. It was kind of just like, it can't be that hard. Let's do it. How hard can it be to set up a nonprofit, right? And I had no idea.
Sure.
I had no idea. But I'm like, well, thank God we have an attorney. It was like,
Hell no.
but like, how hard can it be to put up a show? And it's
an attorney who had never done a nonprofit,
Which
and said the same thing. How hard can it be?
How hard can it be, right? And the interesting thing is, you realize that it's ridiculously hard to do these things. But if I would have done that research ahead of time and known all of the obstacles in the way, I would have been more hesitant to take action on it.
Yeah.
That's how I started TA. It was like, I could teach. And I remember everyone, around is like, well, what qualifications do you have? I'm like, what qualifications does anyone have?
Right.
It's like, I have an expertise, and I want to share that expertise, and that's all it is. And so let me try teaching. And I've always, at least in this half of my life, have done that, as I take action on something before I worry about it, and worry about it meaning research it too much. And I know that's interesting, Allan, because that's different than what we do. Like, I mean, in a play, we research the hell out of it and do all of that. But it's that initial step, like saying yes to do American Buffalo. If I would have actually looked at the dialogue and actually looked at how much to remember, and even though I think you had the harder part in memorization than I did, because you have all of these small interjections that are like, how do you memorize which version of or okay that you're saying at which time?
Well, I didn't always get it right, as I recall. We had a few loop backs.
We did. We had one show where we jumped a couple pages. Do you remember that? I don't remember what happened, but we're in the middle of the scene, and in American Buffalo, it's written by David Mamet. And Mamet has a very naturalistic style to his writing. So there's a lot of like yes and okays and just a lot of overlap, and it's awesome dialogue. But there's a lot of circular dialogue where the characters are talking about the same thing in different ways over and over and over again. And there was one show where somehow we jumped, because the lines are similar, and whatever we were saying, we jumped 2 pages. And then all of a sudden we realized it and somehow jumped back. Now we do all of this without talking to each other, we're just in the characters,
Right.
but we jumped back, which is great. But now we're rapidly approaching what we've already done when we jumped forward.
I feel the heat. I can feel the heat.
And I remember that was on you, Allan. I was like, when we get to this point, I was like, Allan needs to jump forward again to catch us up. And you did, like, flawlessly. We got to this point and you jumped forward.
And landed.
And I was like, oh my God, how did we just navigate that? The audience never knew.
Yeah.
No.
The audience never knew.
The was it assistant director, whoever is, I can only imagine, like, oh my God. The headset next door.
That was such an amazing moment of like, this is what theater's about.
Yeah.
We don't ever stop. Sometimes we get out of sync.
Mm-hmm.
We just always keep moving forward. And it was done so well that I was like, wow, I don't even know how we did that. Because we couldn't stop and talk about it. No one could give us direction. No one and we both had to know exactly where we were at in the script, exactly where we jumped to, where we had to jump back, and then where we had to jump forward again. And we did it live.
So I think, like Allan was saying, about the amount of preparedness and preparation he utilizes for his profession. It's the same thing here. Like, it so well that, God forbid, an event like that happens, or in his professional world, someone tries to throw him off. We know where we're going, and I know exactly what to do. Like, under that pressure, when you learn the lines, and that's why we learn them the way we learn them.
Right.
So when things like this happen, and then it's like you have enough faith and confidence in yourself and each other that it's going to be okay. And you don't know that till you know it.
I felt so blessed to work with you, Allan, on that. Like you and Zach. I mean, Zach Roundy was also such a hard worker, and the three of us we just worked on it all the time. Yeah,
that was a great experience, and it is, like, I mean, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but it is, preparation, because and that's the other amazing thing about theater is. And also tying it into my profession, what keeps my profession interesting is you're working without a net. Film, cut, idiot, do it over again.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Theater can't do that. Court can't do that.
Oh my God.
Working without a net. So it's thrilling.
It supports each other.
And
it does.
And and it's wonderful to and what we're able to do at Theater on the Edge is everybody to a person works so hard toward the common goal that you never have to worry about not having a net when you walk on stage, with an audience. It's amazing. So yeah.
Wow.
And we have to, it's such an ensemble on theater. Right. We have to have each other's back, and we have to, if everyone's not working just as hard, it's something falls through. But if you have a good group of people that are all putting in the work, that all care about it, there's nothing that really can go wrong. It goes astray, but we can all just get it back. And that's, we've seen examples of that over and over and over again. And it's just so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, Allan, because one of the biggest questions I get are people, as I said, that are a little older, because the young people have this question too, but to me, it's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
It's the 30-something, 40-something group that is in a career. So they're working something, whether they're working real estate or they're working medical or they're working something, but they're in a career and they're like, I don't know how to balance my life. Like, I don't know how to do the art on top of it. And they're not ready to quit their career yet because that's how they're making their money. And so do you have any advice to them on where to start or something they can do or any of it?
Yeah. Get up early. I don't know.
I love it. I love it.
If you love it, there are all sorts of things. There are all sorts of ways that we as human beings, I won't say waste time, but spend time doing things that aren't following our passion. And so, if you love work, love doing work in the theater, or love the art of acting and want to pursue it and get better at it, you can find the time. I don't eat lunch. I snack at my desk,
Okay.
or if I'm in a show, I will
Have a banana
take an
before.
take an hour
Feed him with the banana.
yeah, and take time at lunch to run lines or write. You can get so much done for your character just writing at little 5-10 minute free association writing increments. You can do that anywhere, anytime. And it gets you. It also, for me, it supercharges me to be able to do that. Acting is such a tough business because of the audition process and the ability to get to work. And when you get to work, it's just so you don't want to squander those opportunities.
Right. Do you think there's a difference?
Call in sick.
Or that, yeah.
You can do that too.
Do you think there's a difference between waking up early versus staying up late?
I do.
Okay.
Just my mind, I've always been that way ever since my military days. Anytime I have to really focus and really work hard on something, my hours to do that are 5 to 9, 10 in the morning. After that, I'm making phone calls and doing stuff that don't require a lot of brain power.
Right.
But to support what you're saying, I just read recently an article talking about it was the men's brain. I wonder what happens with the women's, but it says that the man's brain shrinks towards the end of the day, the night, but you have like more everything available. So that's kind of interesting. And I talked to my husband about certain things like this, because when let's say he comes home and he's tuckered out, like you can see, like, he's there, but nobody's really home, but he's exhausted. But long story short, to be able to utilize that time, and maybe the Navy gave you the discipline to wake up, whether you like it or not, like you need some of that to get you there, the discipline. And then once you're able to make that habitual, you can do it on your own. But I think the students and people in 30s and 40s, they don't recognize that yet. Like they don't recognize that there's available time earlier. Right. And then it's the price, whether they want to pay it or not, to say, well, I can do that. Or, well, no, I want to have, the Sex and the City cocktails and stuff like that. I'm going to go hang out. There's just so much that can be cut. And then,
yes.
And then, so
the other thing that I would advice I would give to folks that are, older like me, I'm well beyond my 30s and 40s. But for me, and I think this, Marco, when I'm doing a show and the show opens at 7:30 or 8,
right?
I'm usually in bed by 9:30 or 10, or if I'm not in bed, I'm usually nodding off on the couch at 9:30, but asleep usually by 10 or 10:30 or 11 at the latest.
Right.
And so I have to, and I've been blessed and have had the same assistant / secretary that has worked with me at my firm for the last 25 years.
Oh, wow.
And she will make sure that she already knows to do this, that if I've got a show or I'm working on a show, I come home at around 2 or 3 in the afternoon and take I call them attack naps. That's what we call it. Maybe you take a little 30-minute, 40-minute nap. Sometimes I do that. Like if we're doing 2 shows in a day, you take a 10 or 15-minute attack nap and you're
absolutely. And the amount of shows, they're emotional shows. Like, these aren't just, very in the threes, as we would call them. These are very taxing, emotional pieces that you're doing. And sometimes twice a day. Didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry.
No, especially, Natalie, you do a lot of the.
I know how many bananas I need.
And do them so well. My God.
Bananas and naps. For sure, it helps. But you put your body through so much that you need to take that time to make the smart choice and recover. Yeah. Because it actually takes literal energy, the body, to do that stuff at emotional heights that we're trained to do.
Well, the interesting thing is, and the difference between morning and night, and I noticed this when I'm teaching, my morning classes are so much more focused. And there's not a difference in personality that much. There's not between like my morning classes and night classes. There's not a difference in attitude or desire for the work. It's just morning. They've woken up and we're, I don't teach until 10:30. So it's still, but a lot of people don't wake up until 8, 9 o'clock, but it's the first thing they're doing in the day. They're very sharp when they're doing it versus in the evening class, when someone's working all day, they're dealing with life all day long and they come, their brain and energy is so much more scattered, which is interesting because I think we do it. Like, that's why I was wondering what Allan thought, right? What you thought, Allan, about beginning of the day versus end. Because what I found in teaching is we're just more focused and able to learn and able to do things earlier in the day than we are after the day has got the best of us.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
It's a really interesting. Yeah,
it is.
It's also it's also something that I use to motivate myself sometimes, is trying to getting ready for long days on a film set or for where there's a lot of downtime, or getting ready to do a show, is to force myself to do things early afternoon or later in the afternoon that require brain power.
Right.
See if I can do it.
Yeah.
Usually mildly disappointed, but
yeah,
it's I don't know.
Yeah, I'm much more sharp early on.
Yeah. Much more sharp. I got to tell you this, Allan. So first thing I've learned to do in the morning is I listen to like motivational stuff. It gets me going. Some people do prayer, some people whatever. But I found that like what you hear subconsciously, what you're absorbing is very important. So before it used to be like coffee, it used to be the news, the radio, it used to be so much of, I guess, pollution, if you will. But I thought I was trying to be informed. But what happened is like it sets me up in a weird kind of strange way. So when I kind of transitioned, it's motivational stuff. And it says, wake up, 4 a.m, 3 a.m, all that stuff is beautiful. So I have a 24-hour gym, and I've been twice now. I haven't been consistent.
You have the gym. You don't have to go to it. You have it.
At 4 a.m. So I say, okay, I'm up. And I'm put my little motivate. I'm ready. I got my stuff on. I'm going to the gym, and it's dark, as you know, at that time. And I've got the music blasting, and I feel like an evil genius. I'm headed somewhere. I'm so excited. It's so strange. And I go there, and nobody's there. And I just start lifting the weights, and I see this guy who looks like The Rock. I mean, he's huge, and he's in the zone, and he comes in and he puts his bag down, and then he catches me, like the glimpse of his eye. And I was like, I'm here first, you son of a bitch. Like I took his soul that morning. Yeah. Now he's been doing it for years. I only did it one time. I haven't because it was so early, but there's so much time. Like if you get some rest the night before, you can do some incredible things, and you're fresh. And I agree with what you're saying, Marco, 100%. And if you do the things that are mentally challenging that time. Yeah. Yeah. So go ahead, Allan.
Yeah. I exercise early in the morning, before I start my day usually. And there's a little, I live in a neighborhood of Melbourne called O'Galley, Florida, which is like a neighborhood of older homes and trees and stuff. And it's really cool. But there's a little downtown area that's kind of blossomed into a sort of a night spot with a lot of cool bars and restaurants. Not a lot in Orlando standards, but a lot in little old Melbourne standards. A lot happening. And there's a kava bar that stays open for a very long time. And I'm up and working out and exercising, and stop. And one of my exercise stations is in front of the kava bar. And there are people still there from the night before, talking a mile a minute and doing whatever kava does to you. I don't know. And I'm like going, yeah, look at you. But look what I'm doing.
That's
and look how my day is energized.
Right. Yeah.
And, yeah, it's pretty cool.
It is. You're way ahead. And someone who is at the level that you're at, Allan, it's incredible. Like any age, it's incredible. Your life has obviously been in a way that you've been disciplined and you have taught yourself how to do this. You require. I love that you said that. I think that's so powerful. It's not just willy-nilly. And if I feel like I require myself 2 days, so your relationship with that discipline is so incredible. And for you to do that, not just that, but the acting and the right, and then critically, like, people love you. Like, it's just amazing. Allan, you're an inspiration. Keep it up.
Yes.
You guys are too, by the way. Thank you for saying that, though. That's very kind.
Well, we have reached the end of of our time, but that's a good note to end on. But Allan, thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate it.
Yes,
and I feel that there's so much more to talk about.
Just the end of the first session with Allan.
So we're going to definitely have to get you back on so we can continue this, because this is great.
Yes, Allan.
It's been really fun. Thanks for having me.
So thank you so much. And for you again.
Thanks for doing this.
You're
really cool what you guys are doing.
Oh, well, thank you so much. We enjoy it.
I enjoy it a lot.
We have a lot of fun.
I can tell.
We have a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So Nat, once again, thank you.
Thank you, Marco.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in. We can't do this without you. We really appreciate your support. Please remember to spread the word to maybe someone who hasn't listened to us yet. And this might be a good place for them to start. But until our next show, please, I hope you have a great week. Please remember to reward yourself for the risks that you take, and please treat yourself with kindness. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye now.
If you'd like to learn more about our studio and what we do, you can find us online at truthfulacting.com. And check out truthfulactingonline.com for our Learn at Home at Your Own Pace courses.
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
I know what you're trying to do.
I'm trying to free your mind, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.